So statistical reporting is a main focus on what we're going to talk about here with the practice diagnosis. And the key to success is managing accurate patient data. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of people don't understand how the software is calculating the data. And unfortunately, in some cases, the data is being calculated wrong. And bad data is bad management. So if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. And then some people are taking the data out of the software and having their staff calculate it with a spreadsheet to get specific data they're looking for. And that's just another layer of error that could be placed into the process that can provide bad data. So we want to provide statistical information that's based on actions that take place in your daily flow to be able to run reporting on your practice, not only accurate but real time, so you know what's going on. So Vitalogics Practice Diagnosis is the tool, and those of you with Coaction, Vitalogics is just an integrated piece of Coaction that is now provided for you at no charge. It was designed for multiple clinics, practice management groups, franchises, large groups of people that are managing data for clinics. And it's not only, even though it's designed for that type of organization, it can be used by any single practice to get a better heartbeat, a better understanding, a better knowledge base in a split second about the health of your practice and the future of the practice. The statistical dashboard has all the statistics on one screen. And that's important because you don't have to print multiple reports. You don't have to print one report for accounts receivable, another report for new patients, another report for referrals, and on and on and on. You can look at one screen to get a heartbeat of your organization. And it's important that it's functional data. All data presented in any report has to have a purpose and has to be useful. You can make a lot of different softwares and programs print way too much data than you would ever use or could ever take action on. So if it has no use, don't showcase the information. And that's kind of the rules that we set creating the practice diagnosis. So one of the first questions on functional data that we had is what's a new patient? And a lot of people will signify a new patient as anyone that's, let's say, scheduled in the computer or anyone that has an exam. So if you scheduled 60 people at a screening, at an event, at a health fair, and 20 showed for the first exam and 5 accepted care, would you consider that 60 new patients? Many people would. We would consider that 5 new patients because there is, you can see there's a funnel. 60 people scheduled, 20 people showed, 5 people accepted. So there you go. There's the funnel of where you're losing prospects and people that you could have served if you had potentially better format in your clinic, better protocol, better communication, better systems. There's something that could be done, better your communication during the exam that could have provided better outcome. So that brings up the new patient funnel. In Vitalogics, we consider prospect as anyone that is scheduled for an initial appointment. Anyone that's in the computer for the first time but hasn't necessarily had an exam yet. A lead is anyone that had their first exam, and how do we do that? As soon as you bill any exam code, 99201 to 205, it's going to automatically switch them from a prospect to a lead. A lead is someone that shook your hand, met you, talked to you, had a conversation, and you had an opportunity to showcase the chiropractic and the services you offer in your clinic. And last is a new patient is someone that accepts the services, the plan of care, the action steps that you've laid out for their health care. So if you look at a funnel, the prospects are all the people up top. There's always going to be more prospects than leads, more leads than new patients, because new patients is the end of the funnel. So you have leads that go through the funnel. Only so many come in and have an exam. And that's your closing ratio. That angle is how many people that schedule actually come in to a lead and actually become a new patient. The sharper the angle of this funnel, the more work you're going to have to do because you're converting people too many people are dropping out when they become a lead, and then too many drop out when they become a patient. So the length of the funnel is your PVA, is how long are these people staying inside of your practice. Those are your active patients. And that's obviously what we want to build when building the practice. So if you want to increase the input into the funnel of your practice, you need to, or you want to change the angle of the people that have scheduled or came in your clinic, or you want to lengthen the tube, meaning having people have a longer PVA. There are action steps you can take. To increase the input of people in the funnel, you got to increase your marketing programs, internal and external. To change the angle of the funnel, how many convert from prospect to lead and lead to new patient, you have to train your team. You have to train yourself. You have to look at your communication. You have to give better customer service. That is about the experience that you provide. And the lengthening the tube, how long is the PVA? How long does the average person stay in your organization? That's education. Daily communication on chiropractic, handouts, other information, workshops that they attend to help drive the length and livelihood and longevity of your patient base. So when you look at a statistical value of data in your practice, the questions are, what are you calculating and how are you calculating that data? What does a PVA like this tell you, a patient visit average? If it goes up and down like this, what action step could you take on a statistic that looks like this? Not really much. It goes up and down and up and down. So when we're creating these statistical profiles, we want to make sure that the data that we provide is something that you can use to take action upon. A number of the statistics are rolling 12-month statistics. So instead of having monthly up and down like this graph shows you here, we'd like to average it over 12 months and show a nice smooth line graph and at least a number that's averaged over 12 months. Let's go to the program. Christina, if you could pull up the program. Christina, are you able to pull up the program real quick?
I have to change the presenter to me.
Okay. You just hand me the keyboard and mouse, that'd be great. Okay. What we're looking at here is practice diagnosis, and I want to just explain a little bit about the information here. There's 3 steps to finish this project. The first step is providing accurate information. The second step would be of where you're at is what we have here. The next step is learning out where you want to go, which is your goals. And that's the next upgrade in Vitalogics practice diagnosis, is adding goals. And the third is how are you going to get there, which would be adding your plan so that you can see if the plan is working to match your goal. But right now what we have is where are you at. It's functional statistics on one page that's printable that you can bring to an office meeting. So total active prospects. These are people, again, that have scheduled but have not had an exam. You look at the current period, which in this view here, it's 1 month period of time, so 2/1 to 2/29. And the previous would be the previous month. So you're doing a comparison immediately of where you're at this month compared to last month. The leads we split up, we have total leads, but then we have break it up by internal and external leads. If you're new in practice, you're going to expect to see more external leads for the first year. And at some point, you want internal leads to start picking up significantly. They're a lot easier. They're more compliant. They're cheaper to achieve an internal lead. So that's where you want to really focus a lot of energy to build your practice. And now next to the total leads, there's a percent number. And what that is the percentage of prospects that called and scheduled to the percentage that actually walked in and had an exam. That's a very important statistic there. And then the next one is internal-external lead ratio. Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is it 20-80? What's the breakdown percentage-wise between the two? And you can use that to decide how you're going to market next month. Now, new patients are someone that has their second adjustment. Most doctors' offices don't adjust on the first visit. They'll adjust on the second. And a lot of doctors do a 2-day report of findings. So depending on how you do, it may be off by one adjustment, but I think it's pretty strong that on the second adjustment, most people have accepted some type of plan of care, and they'll be switched from a lead to a new patient. And this percentage here will tell you your conversion of people that had an exam that actually accepted your care. That's a major number there that if you work on enhancing that number, it could save you a lot of time in marketing, a lot of money in marketing. Very important piece of data. Missed appointment percentage, also very important. You want that statistic about 10% in my professional opinion. I think when it goes below 5, it's being a little too harsh on the people, and you may lose compliance and patience by being too harsh. Over 10 is not enough confidence at the front desk or handling of missed appointments. So I think between 5 and 10 is a fair piece. We don't want it going over 10 in my perspective. Walk-ins. Walk-ins will tell you how many people are not pre-scheduled, because you want to, in most practices, you want to stem away from walk-ins and stem more into a plan of care so that your front desk is not picking up the phone on every single walk-in, every single schedule of that day. You'd rather have pre-scheduled. It makes everything easier, more efficient. And these are perspectives that I had in running multiple organizations and clinics. It's not the right answer or the only answer. It's just one form of perspective of managing practice. Reactivations are how many people have scheduled at a visit, an adjustment, that haven't been in the office for 6 months. And then that's important. So you know if your inactive marketing is working, whether you're doing direct mail, you're personally calling them, whatever the action may be. It's important to work with your best source of new patients, and that's your inactive patients. It's your best source of new patients. And then it breaks down the total active patients versus inactive patients. This is also important. As people stop coming, it's important for you to move them from active to inactive. And why would you do that? Well, you can run your email campaigns on inactives. You can send direct mail campaigns. You can do a voice broadcast. You can call them all. You can do so many things by printing your inactive report. And I find that to be an extremely lucrative way of building a practice by using people that already know you, trust you, and like you. Those are the 3 criteria that you need to have someone embrace the services that you're offering. And if we look at the right column, we'll go over a little bit more in detail, but hopefully that left column gives you some real exciting data about your practice that you can use to help manage and better run your practice. You can go as far as appointing a staff member to a statistic that they look at daily to make sure they're helping to drive that statistic. For instance, you can have your front desk be in charge of internal leads, and they run a lot of the internal promotions and provide bonus if they reach the level of internal leads that you have deemed to be the goal. And it's a better way to run a practice, being more hands-off and not micromanaging people, but empowering them to drive the business that you own. Okay, we're going to go over the other side, but I'm going to take a moment. I know we started a little bit late, so I didn't get a chance to introduce myself at all and my background. But my name's Joe Esposito, Dr. Joe Esposito. I ran a 5-clinic chain for many years and then built a chiropractic franchise. So I needed data and help design this interface here so I could manage a large group of clinics and assist in helping a doctor find out where he is at or she is at in practice. And, stepping back and, even though we've been through the left side, let's step back a moment globally and understand that this data here can tell you your confidence, your communication, your fear of money or success, your ability to communicate. It tells everything on this piece of paper that I don't need to talk to a doctor in an office. I just need to look at the sheet. I can tell you if he believes in wellness care or even chiropractic. I can tell if he's symptom-based. I can tell if he believes in his, if he has value in his care. I can tell if his staff is efficient in following protocols, because I can tell by the outcomes of these numbers. So let's step back into the form now and look at the right-hand column. Total services, that's the amount of services that you provided. It's a very simplistic mindset, but in order to collect more money, you have to provide more service. So to see what you're going to bring in next month if you're an insurance practice, look at what services you did this month. You can't collect more money than you served, and the money you're collecting now is an outcome of services you did last month. So you can't look at these two numbers during the same month, but you can look at total service previously last month and look at the collections this month, because that takes a little bit of a delay to have that revenue come into your clinic. So total service, total collections, and then you have collections percent. My goal in collections is if we can get to 75 or 80%, I think that is very attractive number to be at. Some clinics maybe will get higher. I think a number of them are lower, but I think that's a fair position to be at. Now you see an asterisk next to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these statistics. And the reason there's an asterisk is because those 5 are calculated on a rolling 12-month statistic. What does that mean? Well, rolling 12-month statistics is it takes your total collection, your total services divided by your total collections equals your collections percent. So the amount that you did and the amount you collected, if you divide the two, that's the percent of collections. That should make sense to everyone on the call. But the problem is the services I provide this month, I'm dividing by the collections I received from last month's services. So it's not really an accurate depiction today if I use the data from this month. So what we find to be the most accurate number is to take all collections for the entire last 12 months divided by all the collections from the last 12 months to give you that percentage. Why do I think that's so important? Well, if you did it just based on 1 month and you provided a lot more services this month, your collections percent is going to go down. If you collected a lot of money because of last month's services, but your services provided this month were low, the number is going to be really low. So if you base that on 1 month of services, it's going to go up and down and up and down. You may be at 80% 1 month, 110% next month, and 50% next month. How can you really make a decision based on that information? It's too volatile. It's too variable. So if you run this now, if you look at this number, it's based on your collections over a year. It's going to move 1 point at a time. This isn't a good depiction because this is just a template, but this is 24. But let's say it was 24. If that goes up to 26, that's a big deal because, again, the actions you did this month affected the 12-month average, all 12 months added together. So you're looking at raising 1, 2, 3 points, and that will make a big impact on the practice. I hope that makes sense to everyone. We can open it up for questions, or you can post questions on the sidebar of the webinar form if you want to ask specific questions on what I'm talking about. I know it's technical data and it's numbers, so hopefully you don't get glassy-eyed while I'm trying to explain these pieces of statistics. The next one is patient income average. That's the average income you get from one person walking in your door. Well, what kind of information is that? Why would you use that information? Well, it's important to know how much an average patient is worth to your practice. Because if your practice, average patient was worth $500, and in my practice the average patient was worth $2,000, I can afford to spend more money on marketing than you would be able to. So if you only provided $500 average services per patient that walks in the door, you don't want to really spend more than $50, 10%, to acquire more new patients. There's certain guidelines you should follow when you're doing your marketing campaigns based on how much average revenue you make per person walking in the door. Now, PVA, that's patient visit average. That's the average amount of time a patient stays in your office. A pain practice is under 20. A structural practice is 20 to 40. A wellness practice is over 40 to 60, and goes up from there. So you want to see what type of practice you have by looking at your PVA. Average services per visit is how much services you provide per average person walking in the door. Another good piece of information. And the following one is average income. How much money is generated from the average visit in your office. All very powerful information to help dictate your marketing and your management of your collections based on those numbers. And the last three things are accounts receivable. How much money is outstanding in the last 30 days? What about 30 to 90 days? What about over 90 days? You should have about 2 months in your total collection, total accounts receivable of total revenue. So if you collect $50,000 a month, it shouldn't be odd to have $100,000 or less in accounts receivable over 90. I'm sorry. No, within the 90. So this, the first and second column collective. If you have over 90 very high, unless it's PI workers' comp, that's not a good thing. PI workers' comp can drive those numbers high because you're waiting on settlements for those cases. So that may drive that over 90 very high. If you run just a regular insurance practice, very low PI workers' comp, or a cash practice, you really want to be careful having that third number be too high. Now let's look down at the breakdown of the services. The next thing we want to do is see where are you making your money. And Practice Diagnosis will break down the services you're offering so you can see that you're not taking x-rays like you used to, or you're doing good with your exams or your adjustments. And it's breaking down the different aspects of a typical chiropractic office. And some of you on the phone may just be doing just the adjustment and the x-ray, which is great. Real straight chiropractic philosophy. Some are doing rehabilitation, and some are adding nutrition. Those are the three core. And yes, I know some of you may have acupuncture and other services that may be added to here, and we can could be in the miscellaneous. But those are the three core that we found across the nation that the average person may be embracing. And it shows you your current and your previous. You can see if you're growing or decreasing in the amount of services you're providing in any of these specific categories. I find that to be very valuable for you to run your practice. You also can see the percentage of the revenue you're getting, the services you're providing, are on different services. How much percent of services are the actual adjustment versus the x-ray or the nutrition or rehab. So that's important information. Now on the right-hand side, you'll see the lead referral. Who referred the lead into your office? And this will break down by percentage of what percentage of people are accessing your practice via screening, health fair, an internal referral, an attorney referral, an MD referral. You kind of know the percentage. And I like this not only throughout the month, but I like this over the year. So you can look over the year and say, you know what, I didn't realize we're getting so many patients from X. Let's find more X. So if it's medical doctors, let's talk to more medical doctors. If it's you're getting more from a gym, then let's do more in the gym. Find out where you're getting your patients from and solidify and strengthen those areas of the practice. And the last piece of data on the practice diagnosis is the case type. The case type is what percentage of people you're getting from different types of cases. For instance, cash, general insurance, Medicare, workers' comp, personal injury. Those would be the general overall case types. So If you want to know, insurance companies sometimes want to know, or when you're getting your malpractice insurance, or if you want to see where are we getting our revenue from and where should we market, you can look at the case types. So looking at this document, we can find out why you're having people drop out of the funnel. We can find out if your staff is doing the right job with collections. We can find out if you're educating people well by their PVA. We can find if you have value in your service by looking at your patient income average or your average services per visit. And we can look at how good are you collecting the money by looking at the accounts receivable numbers. Then a breakdown of services that you may be ignoring re-exams, and that's why your exam number's low, or you're not implementing the nutrition like you thought you were, because it's only 2% of your services. And you can really diagnose the practice. That's why it's called practice diagnosis. And again, as I explained in the beginning of the call, in the future, we're looking at putting your goals into here, so you can combine your goal and your actual status to help see where you're at on your plan of reaching your goal. So that should provide an overview of the purpose of practice diagnosis and how it integrates and can be used to help manage your practice. If you have any questions on practice diagnosis, please post them on the right-hand side, and I'll answer those questions. If not, Christina's going to kind of talk about how to calculate, how this information may be calculated, or how you can make some modifications or better use some of these tools. So we'll give it a moment for someone to post some questions, and then we'll hand it off for the second half of this talk. Christina, if you have any questions, you can just post, you can just verbally tell them and I can answer them.
One person asked if it was possible to have someone counted as a new patient on the third visit versus the second visit. Right now, it's not an option to do that. It is something that we are talking about, of seeing if we can set it up where you have more control over that. But right now, as it stands, you're not able to change that. But it is something that we're in talks about.
Well, just to give clarity, it is the third visit. It's calculated by the second adjustment. So it will be your third visit, but it'll be your second adjustment. Because if you don't adjust... It
has nothing to do with visit. It just has to do with the code.
Yeah, so the adjustment code. By the second time you enter the adjustment code, it will process it as a new patient. Any other questions?
Okay, well, that's the only questions that I'm seeing. So I'm going to take you guys through some of the reports where you can see the list of prospects and the list of leads, and explain a couple things about those patients going through that flow from prospect to lead to patients, as Dr. Joe mentioned. I'm Dr. Christina Esposito. I am the Director of Customer Support and Training for Vitalogics. So I've spoken to one or two of you in the past. But I want to start off by showing, under the report section, this patient status report. So patient status report is kind of a combination of the old recall report that was in Coaction. You may recognize this part of it, where you can print a list of your patients based on last completed appointment, whether it was 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60, and so on. But with the patient activity report, you can print a list of your prospects. So when I generate this list, as Dr. Joe mentioned, this is going to be a list of everybody who has been entered into Vitalogics. Whether or not they have an appointment, you can see that under the next appointment date here, but they have not yet received their first adjustment. So we can see that this list becomes a great, like a call list for your staff. They can pick up the phone and they have all the information they would need to contact this person. So for instance, we can use Tom Hanks here as an example, and he was referred by Mary Moore. So Mary gave us his name and told us that my friend Tom suffers from headaches, and I really think that he would benefit from this type of care. Then the staff can give them a call and say, hey Tom, I got your name from your friend Mary, and she seemed to think that we would be able to help you with the headaches. We actually have an opening later on this afternoon if you're interested in finding out what we can do for you. So it makes that initial call a nice warm call rather than a cold call to the person. So there's 3 ways that a patient can come off this prospect list. We already talked about the first way, and that is by charging an exam code to the patient's file. And as soon as that visit is closed out, they automatically come off the prospect list and get put on the lead list. The second way someone can come off the prospect list is if their file is made inactive. So if we pull up a patient's file here, you can see that under the General tab, where you put the patient demographic information, there is a patient status button. So when I click Edit here, you'll see the patient status options are active, inactive, and terminated. Give it a second to load. Okay, so we can see here under patient status, our options now are active, inactive, and terminated. So the difference between inactive and terminated, the only distinction between those two, both are indicating that they're no longer coming into the office. But we wanted to create a group called terminated so that if I want to pull an inactive list of patients so that I can market to them, I'm able to separate out a category called terminated, people that I don't want to market to. For instance, if somebody moved out of the state, you probably don't want to spend money on a mailer to mail to their old address because you know they've already moved. So instead of making them inactive, you would put them in the status terminated. If you have a patient who passed away, you can put their status to terminated, so you're not marketing to their house. So that's the difference between inactive and terminated. Either one of these will take them off the prospect list completely. The next way that you can take somebody off the prospect list is by using this button here where it says New Patient. You can click this box. What this does is it manually takes them off the prospect list or the lead list, either one, if they're prospect or lead list, and puts them as a patient. And the reason we allow this override is if you have a patient, let's say they're coming to you for your nutritional consultation and for nutritional services, but they have a chiropractor that they've been with for 20 years that they're happy with. So if that's the case, you will never charge that 99201, 202, 203, any one of those codes, so they'll be stuck on your prospect list forever. But you do want to consider them an active patient because they are coming to you and receiving service in your office. If that's the case, you just go into their patient file and you click New Patient, and they'll come off the list and go on the patient list. So those are the 3 ways. 1 is charge the exam code. 2 is change their status from active to either inactive or terminated. Or 3, you can do a manual override by clicking this New Patient button. So going back to our patient activity report, once they come off this list, they automatically go on the lead list. And this is a list of people that actually did come into your office. They received an exam, but they haven't had that second adjustment. They kind of fell off somewhere. They fell through the cracks. They haven't come back. So again, this becomes a great call list for your staff to follow up with these people so we can get them scheduled and get them in for either a report of findings or to start care. Now the key with these patient activity reports, the patient status list, is that if you aren't keeping up with patients and properly inactivating them when they're no longer coming in, then this tool doesn't really become functional anymore. Because, for instance, if I look at this prospect list here, if your prospect list is 20 pages long, it's not really a useful tool. People should be on this list for, maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most, but they should be constantly coming on this list and getting off the list. If you find people are on here for a year, then they're probably not being closed out, they're not inactivated, and you're not properly managing your patients. Which, if you're going to do an inactive campaign, those people who aren't coming in your office are not on that list. So when you pull an inactive list to do some sort of marketing campaign, they're not going to be a part of that. So real important that you manage those patient statuses by inactivating those people who haven't come in. So that was a major point that I wanted to make there with converting from prospects to leads, new patients, the 3 different ways that you can take people off the list. If your system is showing all zeros still, then just jump onto support for us. I can check your global settings to make sure that those CPT codes are set up properly in your system on the global setting. So if you're looking at it and you're seeing all zeros, just jump onto the support portal and we'll take care of that for you. So I'll give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions about that prospect and lead list. And if there are no questions, that'll be the end of the webinar. Hopefully you guys got some good information on the management of these statistics. And again, any questions from this point, just feel free to jump on that portal and we'll be able to get those questions answered for you. I see a question says, what about the new patient box that can be checked? I'm assuming that was what I went over here. This is what you're talking about, the new patient override. Another question, I believe just confirmation of going from prospect to lead to patient. Prospect, again, anyone who is entered into the software system. Whether or not they're scheduled or not does not matter. If they're entered into the system, they're a prospect. Exam code automatically makes them a lead. And then the second adjustment code automatically makes them a patient. Another question was, when will practice diagnosis be able to be viewed? Basically, we're in the process of converting everybody over to VitalLogic. So if your system still has the coaction icon on the top left of the screen and still says coaction, then you have not yet been converted yet. It's going to take a while for us. We're kind of doing it slow and steady to make sure everybody's comfortable with the transition. So we are looking at a total of a 2-month conversion time. So some people have already gotten the new system, and little by little we're converting people over. So once, and you'll get a heads up beforehand that you'll be queued to go. We'll let you know when it's time for you guys to transfer over. And then as soon as you get that update, you'll see the icons change here, and then you'll have this practice diagnosis option there. Let's see if there's any more questions. The last point that I wanted to make that I forgot when we were talking about the prospects, another great use of that tool is when you're out about in town, like a lot of people, if they do a health fair or something like that, they get people to sign up for a raffle, or you get their name and phone number, and they indicate that they're interested in what you do, but a lot of times that those people never get followed up with. So it's real important that you have your staff enter those people into VitalLogic, even though they may not have scheduled an appointment, because once they get on that prospect list, that's how you're able to follow up with them and make sure that those people don't fall through the cracks. So that's a very important point to make there, because that's, I feel a lot of clinics are missing that tool where they get all these contacts that then they don't get followed up with. So that's all I have for this evening. I hope you guys have a good night. Oh, I got one more question here. Are you providing the new sign-in? I don't know if you're talking about the self-check-in. Yes, okay. So the self-check-in module, we're still last minute, a couple little changes here and there. We want to make sure that it's fully functional. Our tentative release date is late next week. So we're kind of scrambling to get those last-minute things tweaked up and all the training tools available to you. So don't quote me on this, but late next week is really what we're shooting for. But we want to make sure we have all the ducks in a row before we can release that. But it's coming very soon. All right, guys, thanks for your time, and have a great night.